You're not on.
Hello? Okay. Welcome again. Thank you for coming to the Graham City Council meeting agenda, May 11th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Appreciate everyone being here tonight. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And if Bobby, do you mind doing our invocation? Please bow your heads.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this gracious day and this beautiful afternoon. Father, we ask that you grant us wisdom and discernment as we go about doing our community's business. Let us be open, listen, but discerning at the same time. Father, we thank you for all that you've done for this community, and we ask that you continue to protect us. These things we ask in your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First item on the agenda is the proclamation for Arbor Day. We hereby do proclaim April the 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the city of Graham. Whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day to be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of our precious topsoil and by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderating the temperature, cleaning the air, producing oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource that gives us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. Now, therefore, I, Jennifer Talley, Mayor of the City of Graham, proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the City of Graham and challenge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. This is the 11th day of March, 2025. So there's plenty of things out on resources out on the internet. If you're interested in planting a tree, they will send you seedlings to do so, and you can come participate in the Arbor Day celebration that we have here in Graham. We always have an awesome Arbor Day celebration. It's really honestly one of my favorite events. I know that seems strange, but I'll never get past the fact that
John Denver.
I mean, it's so organic and such a wonderful event. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I have great memories of that day. So you guys have to check it out. Didn't know we had such talent up here on the council. But do you know what they have planned for this Arbor Day?
I haven't heard.
So usually they do like poems, and the kids get up and read the poems, and they have a planting of a tree somewhere. Brian, do you know where the tree will be? Graham Rec Center. And then if you want to name a tree and plant a tree in honor of somebody, they always have naming opportunities as well. And my family has participated in that several times. So I'm going to sign this, and thank you all. I hope you guys can come out for that event. Now moving on to the consent agenda to approve the February 11th, 2025 City Council meeting and closed session minutes. B, to approve a request to close the 100 block of East Elm Street on Saturday, May the 3rd for the Big C Community Christian Concert from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Includes setup and cleanup. C, to approve Capital Fire Protection LLC as a selected vendor for a 3-year contract for fire extinguisher inspections, testing, and maintenance services. D, to approve a budget amendment to recognize $34,885 in insurance proceeds revenue for a damaged police vehicle and increase police department capital outlay budget by $34,885. E, to approve a budget amendment in the amount of $25,000 in federal drug forfeiture revenue to federal account balance to assist with the purchase of a police vehicle and required equipment. F, to approve an amendment to the audit contract with Stout, Stewart, McGowan, and King to allow a time extension to May 31st, 2025. G, to approve a capital project ordinance in the amount of $500,000 for emerging contaminant study. H, to approve tax releases totaling $618.42. Is there any item on that consent agenda that the council would like to discuss?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as written.
Is there anyone in the audience that came to address these specific issues that are on our consent agenda tonight? Hearing none, there's a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Consent agenda passes. Street closure for new business. Touch a Truck Easter celebration, April 5th. City Council will consider a request to close the East Market Street between North Main and North Marshall Street from 9:30 to 3:30 for the United Methodist Church Touch a Truck Easter celebration on Saturday, April the 5th, 2025. I recognize Assistant City Manager Aaron Holland.
Thank you, Mayor, and don't really have much to add. You pretty much covered the request. Being that it's the first time that they request this before council, that's why it's on new business versus the consent agenda. The Special Events Committee has reviewed this preliminarily. Once approved by council, then any outstanding items that are still needed to get done will get taken care of following the meeting.
Okay, I had asked if the people on Market Street were notified. Did you hear any response? Okay, so at least I just like people to be notified that they're not gonna have access to that street, especially because we have some residential people that live on that street. Do I hear a motion to approve the road closure?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion we approve the road closure as
Okay,
written.
do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Item number 2, ordinance amendment, Chapter 12, Article 1, impending public rights of way. City Council will consider an ordinance adding Section 12-17, blocking or impeding street or highway, public sidewalk, and public passageway access to Chapter 12, offenses and miscellaneous provisions, Article 1, and General Division 1 generally. I'd like to recognize Assistant City Manager Aaron Holland.
Mayor Talley, if I may interrupt here, we are requesting that City Council table this one until the April meeting while we work through some additional changes with our legal counsel.
Okay, do I hear a motion to do so?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we table the ordinance amendment for Chapter 12, Article 1, impending public rights of way.
Okay, do I hear a
I
second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. It's been tabled until our May meeting. Item number 3, ordinance amendment. Well, I did want to say that there may be some people that have come in regards to this ordinance tonight, and I did want to not make them have to come back. Is there anyone here tonight in regards to the ordinance about blocking or sleeping on the sidewalk or public passageway access or any of that?
Madam Mayor, just to clarify, I understood the motion to be a delay till April, but I thought you said May, so I just want to be sure it was.
I'm sorry, April.
April.
Sorry, apologize. Yes. If you'll step forward, if you'll just state your name and your address, please, sir, for the clerk.
Jason Black. My address is a business. It's 24 Northwest Court Square, Suite 207.
Okay,
Been there 5 years. We've had a lot of people to come and go as far as, I call them exhibitionists, just to put it politely. People that love the attention of the traffic and whatever pleasure it brings them to stay out on the sidewalk and obstruct the flow of traffic and our tourists, our business owners. And here lately, it's really ramped up with one particular individual that likes to bark and scream and encourage cars to honk. So it's just an all-day chaotic affair. I'm hoping that something could be implemented to deter this and to change it for the future as Graham grows, because there's always going to be exhibitionists. There's always going to be people that want to go to that particular corner because it has more concrete real estate than any other area around the square where the park is. Also, there was an old school law disrupting the peace or something. Do y'all remember that? Disturbing the peace? I don't know if that's in the ordinance. Food for thought.
Yes.
Loitering, I don't know if you can do that in public, but where it's located and where they like to hang out, it does block the flow. And I've watched mothers with their infant children in strollers go out into the street to avoid people on the corner. I've seen some crazy stuff because my office just overlooks it. In the meantime, one thing that if you could entertain the idea of is implementing traffic barrels around the brick wall that skirts the park, because it is cracking, it is shifting, and it is sinking. And I've seen mothers put their babies on it. I've seen the kids jump over it and go into the park. And of course, the exhibitionists love to set up shop on the brick wall, or at least their belongings. So just, that's all I've got. I think the traffic barrels would, about 18 of them to be exact, would deter people from setting up shop on the brick wall.
Okay, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, ma'am.
We will have this up for discussion, the amendments. I don't know if that addresses your immediate concerns, but we do have an officer here tonight. Officer, can you step forward and explain what would be considered disturbing the peace? I think I think the gentleman he's speaking about plays a tambourine and
Yeah, I'm familiar with
honking
it.
of the horns and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, he's been removed from the property before. He's also been arrested for the same conduct. And when we get called out there, or we see him out there and he's doing that conduct, we do tell him he needs to leave. As far as impeding the sidewalk, if there's a group of people out there, they're informed that they have to stay out of the walkway. They can't block businesses. They can hold signage. They can't use noise amplification unless they have a permit. And we've been able to quell that by giving them verbal warnings on that. But they are prohibited from having noise amplification without a permit. And during the day in that area with the courthouse being there, we haven't issued any permits to use any noise amplification during the weekdays.
Okay. We want people to be able to use their First Amendment right. We do have a free speech zone out front. But I have heard complaints from several businesses downtown about the noise from the horns, the honking of the horns. And I think, Ricky, you called me and said that people were complaining to you. And
Yes.
Lonnie, I think people have complained to you.
Yeah, and there was,
So-
I know there were a group of folks that were out there at one point were holding signs and soliciting people to honk their horns, and they were told they couldn't have those signs out, trying to encourage
Okay.
people to honk their horns.
Okay. So if you see that type of behavior, I encourage you to call law enforcement. They'll go out there very nicely, explain to them. We want people to be able to say whatever they want to say. But also we want to respect that businesses are trying to do business and that they also have rights to peaceable enjoyment of their property as well. And I think to try to mitigate that, not to address anybody directly, is to probably best to just, our law enforcement's very well versed in how to deal with them, anybody that's out there and what the rules are. And I will say most people are pretty compliant. But sometimes they don't know the rules and they'll do stuff that they shouldn't be doing. And so, sorry if that was disruptive to your business.
To specifically answer your question, there are rules and laws that prohibit certain behaviors. So if you do see it, call 911 and we'll send it. Yeah.
He cuts it out while y'all are there observing, and then when y'all leave, it starts back up. He's not exercising the First Amendment right as far as speech there's normal speech pattern, it's unintelligible barking at the bear. I don't want to do an impersonation of the bear's nest, but I almost feel it necessary. He's
So
yelling.
he's just barking?
Barking, yes, pounding his chest, shaking his hand, it's just bad chaos all day. And the minute I try to take a real estate phone call, I have people asking me, what is that in the background? It's like it's just a crazy guy barking at the bear. I mean, it's almost daily.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
And we've also reached out to some local facilities to try to see if they can provide him some resources. And at this point, the resources we have been unable to give us anything that can help them out.
One other thing I want to say about this, with the traffic barrels, there is so much sidewalk.
We need you to come up.
There's so much sidewalk available out there that the barrels will not impede with the traffic, but they will keep people off that wall, and it'll deter people like this particular gentleman as of recent from disrupting the peace.
Okay, thank you. We'll take that into consideration. Number 3, was there anybody else? Number 3, ordinance amendment, chapter 14, article 3, public use of Graham Mebane Lake. City Council will consider an ordinance amendment of chapter 14, article 3, section 14-127, and adding section 14-130 regarding public use of Graham Mebane Lake. Recognize Assistant City Manager Aaron Holland.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This was brought up at the conclusion of last month's meeting, to have it put on to this month's meeting. The staff, the Recreation Department, as well as the attorneys, met to discuss concerns with, property owners around the lake, probably clearing more area than they're allowed to do. The penalty section in our code of ordinances didn't really have strong enough language as far as the penalties go. So the suggestion was to ask council to allow for a code of ordinance amendment to increase the penalty to $500 for a violation. As this is the drinking water for both Graham and Mebane, we need to have measures in place to protect the drinking source. And I know Brian can probably speak, to specifics if council will allow him to come forward as far as the property owners around the lake.
What is there a fee now?
It's $100, 50? Yeah, I was gonna say 50. So it's only
Which is
$50 now.
$50, okay. Yes, you want to speak, Brian?
Since probably before the lake was even built, this has been an issue. As you guys may or may not know, the cities of Graham and Mebane bought land all around what would become the shoreline of Graham Mebane Lake. So no property owner owns land right down to the water. Now, it varies widely from one property to the next of how much property is actually owned by the city up the shoreline, if you will. But over the past, I've been here over 20 years, so I'll just say 20 years, it has been an issue with a handful of property owners around the lake. Various enforcement measures have been taken over those years, letters, personal contact. There was some court cases that were brought several years ago. I can relay one story just about the $50 fine. Former city manager Frankie Manus was at the front desk one day, accepted payment for one of the fines. And that guy said, if this is all it is, I'll be fined every month. You can fine me every month if you want to, because it's worth it to have a view down to the lake. So that's kind of the attitude that we've been faced with over the years. So, and it's becoming more egregious as we move on. We're working with a couple of property owners now to remedy some issues that they've cleared a lot of trees and all of the vegetation down to the water's edge. And when the lake level drops for various reasons, they've even gone out and built things into the lake itself or into one of the creeks. So it has become a major issue. And
Did you remove it?
Not yet, because you can only paddle back there. So we're trying to get access to through the property to see if we can even remove it. You can see it from GIS mapping, but to paddle back there, we have not done that
You
yet.
have to cross their property to get to it.
Correct. And I've got something in the next couple of weeks that we will go on the property with the owner and assess the damage that's been done.
What did they build a pier or what?
No, well, I can't tell what's actually in the water itself, but on our land, on their land as well, but into our land, they've built a nice dirt bike track is what I'll call it, because again, I've not set foot on the ground, but from a GIS map, it looks like a very extensive dirt bike or ATV track that I wouldn't mind having at one of our parks, just not down by the shoreline, washing all that sediment into the lake. So that's what we've been dealing with over the past few years. We hope this will slow that down a bit.
So is what they have done, I know whatever's in the water is obviously ours. Their land apparently goes down pretty close to the water side. Is the dirt track itself on our property?
Oh, yes. Yeah, without a survey, you can tell that it is right down by the water's edge.
I have no problem coming up with a civil penalty. I think going from 50 to 500 is kind of excessive for somebody that may be a new owner that they don't necessarily know. But I do think like maybe the first note, you should get some sort of notice, put you on notice. The first, and then, I mean, Bonnie, there
Well,
are people
bought
that
the
have no idea. The general public has no idea sometimes
But
that they are doing anything wrong by weed eating. I mean, would you not agree that there are people that do not realize that they cannot weed eat? Now, certainly
There's-
building something, they should get a survey, but weed eating and stuff,
Well,
that goes from 50
Know
to
where their
$500.
property ends.
There, yeah.
property would it-
There have been letters sent, and yes, homeowners change. And we have a letter drafted that will be sent along if this passes to, I forget how many landowners are adjacent to the shoreline, but they will all get a letter. And we have letters from early 2000s that all these folks have gotten. And there is always a claim of, I didn't know. There are claims from the real estate agents who are selling lakefront property. They didn't know. It seems kind of convenient that, you know, you don't know what is your property and what is our property. We can't, I guess we could, but we have not taken the expense to post all of our property or to fence all of our property around the lake. But yeah, to know that you can't cut anything down to the water's edge, period. That's a state law. If it's a drinking source, you can't touch any vegetation.
My point is that I don't know that a lot of people know that. I know that, but I just don't feel like a lot of people are well-versed enough. It's just like, you know, when you tell me as a property owner that you own an easement out in front of my house to put a sidewalk or to run utility lines or whatever, I feel like I can still cut that grass. So I'm sure, to me, I just want to, you know, I certainly believe that once you put them on notice and you tell them that they can't do that and that there's a state law that they can't do that, I have no problem finding them after that.
And that's
No
what,
problem whatsoever.
that's a step in this process. They will get that letter immediately. And then there are some, again, it's a handful, I'll say 10 or 15% that are repeat offenders. And some of them, I'm not sure of the gentleman who made that comment to the former city manager. I don't know his name, but there are probably others that live around the lake that have the same sentiments as he did. And so it is nothing to them. They've gotten those letters. Some of them still live there. I know for a fact, still live in the same house. And they're still doing the same things, cutting all the way down so they can have a view of the water. I personally don't blame them, but it's illegal. And they just can't do it. And I don't know if, you know, Tanya at the water plant would have any technical background to give you of what it may cost the city to treat all of these chemicals that are coming off lawns that are washing into the lake, and then they have to treat, because that's drinking water for lots of folks.
Did does the city, does the person that is, that owns the property, I mean, have you sent out notices to everybody around the lake that, that they're not supposed to be?
Multiple times
Okay.
over
Yeah,
years.
even since I've been here, we've sent notices to the property owners out there, notifying them of, you know, this is ours, this is yours, and this is what you can and cannot do.
And then how do you know when property changes hand?
We don't. That's why,
Okay.
you know, we send these letters. We don't have a pattern, like to say we'll do it every other year or in every even year. We don't have anything like that, but they've been frequent over the past, again, I'll use 20 years.
Well, I think as long as you put people on notice and let them know that they're not, what they are allowed and what they are not allowed to do, and you make it very clear, then I don't have a problem with giving them penalty.
Yeah, and we have, when I talk about a letter, we understand that some of the properties are rental properties, and so a homeowner may, or a property owner may live in Raleigh, for instance, but we're going to attempt to send it to the physical address of the home and also the property owner address too, to try to eliminate as much gray area as we possibly can. So the folks actually occupying the property at the time understand what they are allowed and not allowed to do, and the property owner understands as well.
Yeah, I just know from owning property, it's sometimes gets lost in translation. You know, you hire a landscaping company to mow your yard, and you've made it very clear when you initially hired them that they're, you know, you shouldn't go past this area. Then they hire some new employee that goes out there and they just go to where the grass stops growing.
If we were dealing with just a landscape company making a
Yeah.
mistake, that would be one thing. That is
I just
not
don't want
the case.
anybody to
There,
be,
you said they've cut trees down,
Oh,
right?
yes, ma'am.
yeah.
So who's responsible for replacing that type of vegetation?
We have an agreement with a current, I'll say, property owner for him to replace the trees at his cost.
Yeah, of course, they're not gonna be mature trees.
No.
You know, so, you know, I mean, that's, the damage is kind
Yeah,
of,
damage is done. It'll
Yeah.
take 20 years to
exactly.
plus to
yeah.
recover. But when you're going down the lake and you see a forest line, and then all of a sudden there's a
Big
window, I'll
opening.
call it, that you can see right up to a nice pretty home, and there's no trees and this beautiful grass down there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bet that Mother Nature didn't do that.
Nope. Well, and the thing is, you know, when you buy a piece of property and, you know, Brian, you're a real estate attorney. You probably know this. I mean, when I bought my house, you know, there's woods behind my house. I mean, I wouldn't just take it upon myself to go back there and start cutting down trees. I mean, I know where my property ends. You know, I can't just go in there and do what I want.
Mhm.
To me, it's the same thing. I mean, you buy a piece of lake property, you know where that property ends. You should know when you bought the property, you should have all of that information. Am I correct? And if they don't pay attention to it, I guess that's gonna be a super expensive lesson.
Yes,
But I
ma'am.
bet they'll only do it once.
Uh,
If it's 500
we'll
bucks, they'll
see.
probably only do it once,
We'll see.
hopefully, you know?
And assuming there are any changes adopted tonight, we will notify the property owners of the action that was taken tonight and the civil penalties, whatever they are, that go along with it.
I mean, maybe
Have
we
you-
should
have you
make
no- have you
provisions for
notified
a progressive fine if they continue doing it. Maybe it shouldn't be $500 the second time. Maybe it should be even more the second time, because you know they knew after the first fine, right? So I mean, maybe we should even make it, you know, progressive
If
from
you say
there.
$50 the first time, $500 the
Mm.
second time, that's pretty.
I'd start with 500 and then I would go from there.
I
Next
would-
time you do it, it's 750. Next time you do it, it's $1,000. you know? I mean,
Because
You
that's
know,
our drinking.
yeah, it's our,
Yes,
it's our
sir.
water, and then we have to, the city has to fix that. So I think 500 is a good starting point, jumping off point, you know?
I agree with Bonnie.
And have you notified the property owners about this consideration tonight?
No,
Since we
not,
approved it.
not that I'm aware of. No notification has been sent.
Did we not notify them?
This will be the notification.
Okay,
They were notified today because I talked about it on the radio station.
not everybody listens to the radio though.
Well,
Okay. So is there anybody here tonight that'd like to discuss this public use of the Graham Mebane Lake? Okay, we need a motion.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the ordinance amendment to Chapter 14, Recreation and Parks, Article 3, Public Use of Graham Mebane Lake.
a second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, appointments, Canine Review Board. City Council will consider 2 appointments and 1 recommendation to the Canine Review Board. The slate is as follows. Daphne Younger, request for appointment. Shannon Donahue, Dr. Shannon Donahue, new applicant. Zachary Adner, new applicant, and Pamela McCall, recommendation to the Humane Society.
Yeah, this board consists of 1 appointee from the Humane Society or Animal Services, and then 2 appointees by city council.
Okay, so we can only pick 2 out of these 4, right?
Well, 3.
You'll do 3
Pamela.
total. The one who's listed as number 4, Pamela, is the one that you really just have to make the recommendation on because they select the appointee, but this is who they put forward. They're kind of blessing it.
Yeah, I don't know any of these individuals. Does anybody have a- You here? No, I'm sorry, I do not. Is anybody here tonight in regards to this? Sure.
Westbrook, 604 Chalkwater. I recommend Daphne Younger because she's been cutting my dog's hair for about 10 years. She works over here on Highway 54 at Puppy Love and Cuts or whatever it's called. And I know her very well and I would recommend her for any board. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we appoint Daphne Younger, Dr. Shannon Donahoe, and Pamela McCall.
I second your
Second.
motion.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Please send out our appreciation for Zachary Adner being willing to serve, and the other ones were who we chose. Public comment period. I have a Rayburn Hilliard. If you could please step to the mic, state your name and your address.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, fellow council members. I'm Rayburn Hilliard. I live at 723 Larry Avenue in Graham. And I just wanted to kind of consult with you for a second and get some direction on an issue that I came up with between the City Inspections Department and the Graham Police Department on cars that have been left in the roadway, just parked on the side of the road on Larry Avenue and Parker Street. And my main concern is basically safety, because especially in the evenings when I go out to walk, if I don't divert and walk through people's yards and I'm walking on the road, especially when other members of our neighborhood community come home and park, it creates kind of a small bottleneck zone in in the small curve that is between Myrtle Drive and Larry Avenue on Parker Street.
These cars have been there for many years. All of these cars have tags that are expired by 2 or 3 years. And when I consulted with the inspections department, they said that because the cars are on the roadway, that this would be an issue that the Graham Police Department would handle. When I consulted with the police department, I was redirected to the inspections department. So I just want some direction because I would like it to be a little safer for us. And I'm not the only member of the neighborhood that walks during the evenings. There's 2 or 3 other neighbors that also walk and enjoy, getting out and exercise and walking around the block. So I'm just kind of curious, what would your recommendation be for one, getting these junk cars out of there because they're just an eyesore? Several, all but one of them has just junk in them, and they've all been sitting there for a very long time without valid tags on them. Because I would like to, if it pleases the council, to not get hit by a car while we're out walking, especially in the evening. And there's of course more traffic in the city now. And there's already been a couple of different accidents resulting in people hitting other vehicles and telephone poles in that area due to distracted driving or maybe having to swerve for somebody else. And I just would not like to not be a casualty of that.
Officer Sisk, would you like to address this?
Thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, I was speaking to Mr. Hilliard out in the back. This is something I'm unaware, I've never been aware of this complaint. I did advise him that if there are cars parked along the road that are illegal or unregistered, that we can tag them and have them removed. I've given him my contact information to contact me. If it is an issue, we can send an officer out there, and if the vehicles are in violation, they can be tagged. As far as the parking, unless it's designated as a no parking area by city ordinance, then we can't really, if it's not, there's no signage saying that it's no parking along the street there. And those cars are legally parked unless they're out in the roadway causing obstruction.
Okay, thank you so much. Ruben Kalunga. Please state your name and your address.
Hello, my name is Ruben Kalunga. This is on behalf of address 141 East Hardin Drive. It's Forgotten Rodales. I'm one of the owners, and we're looking to add alcohol to Arts Around the Square Festival, if possible. We're asking for alcohol vendors to be allowed, hopefully up to 4, and Parks and Rec could decide who the other 3 would be. Ben's also been in discussion in talks with Emma about making sure that we section off or have signage out in the children's area so there won't be any alcohol allowed back there. And yes, that's the request. I didn't miss any bullet points.
Okay, do you have anything to say about this, Brian? No, the other Brian behind
The
you.
Brian behind you, the other Brian, the other brother Brian.
I think before the other brother Brian gets up here, I'll save him a couple of steps. I think since this was a city council-led initiative as far as Arts Around the Square, it's really up to city council to determine if you want alcohol vendors as a part of the event. If so, either make a motion or have a consensus tonight so they know how to move forward one way or the other. Because right now, there's nothing that would necessarily permit alcohol vendors as being one of the spots for Arts Around the Square.
Well, I have a question. Are you talking about just having like vendors at where exactly? Like,
Just in the different sections, they could all be put in one spot, or they could be in the different areas. of the
like
street.
around the square?
Correct, yes, except for the children's section.
Would, one of the questions I had for Brian is, does the Dogwood Festival or Carousel Festival have alcohol vendors? Okay.
Designated.
You look
area.
nice, Brian. Good fun. Well, you know,
Could we designate?
I personally don't drink. It doesn't matter to me whether they're there or not, but my personal feeling about it is that as long as it's, you know, I mean, they've had plenty of events in the past. The vendors, this particular vendor, I've never seen anybody, you know, and I'm downtown during these events, I hadn't seen anybody act. They've always been very, I hadn't seen any underage people drinking or anything like that. I think they've been pretty responsible. But you just know this. There's not a problem until there's a problem. But then when there's a problem, it ends up, everybody, you know, is gonna be like, you know, when we have a city-sponsored event, you know, we have the liability insurance and all that kind of stuff. And so just understand that if that's something that this council agrees to do, you got to make sure you're following every rule the ALE requires and be very conscientious that, you know, our reputation is something that we value quite a bit. And we just don't want to have any kind of problems. We definitely don't want to have anybody underage drinking or anything like that.
We definitely don't want to incur any fines either.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess I just say that, you know, in event types, public event type situations, they're not going to blame you, they're going to blame us
Okay.
if something goes wrong. So, you know, I just want to make sure that you understand the importance of participating in an event that is put on by the city versus, say, an event that you're holding, say, at Forgotten Rodales or where you've asked for the road closure and you have your own insurance and stuff.
That's fine.
An extra layer of, please don't do anything to,
we're-
or please ensure that everything
Well-
goes well.
Don't get us in trouble is what
Well,
I'm trying to
We're
say.
asking for, are you asking to designate one of the blocks
Like a beer garden?
like a beer garden or to incorporate arts around the square that would include Forgotten Ales?
No, we would be one of the vendors there.
Are you?
And whether you all decided to have, if there are four, you know, four vendors there, if you want everyone in the same section, they could be in the same section, or we could be spread out, wherever you guys like to designate us.
Because for the bars that are around the square, they're still gonna be open, right? We're not, there's no
They can-
prohibition.
Yeah, they'll
It
be
can
open.
be.
You know, Hi-Fi Records.
Yeah, they'll be
I
open.
mean, I will say that when they've had these other events, I haven't ever heard anybody complaining. Like, Forgotten Rodales does the event, the, the Graham
Graham
Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest.
And he does it right in front of a bar and right in front of the Verdict. And I've never heard them complain about like them doing it over there as opposed to on their own property. So, I'm right? Is that
Yep.
correct? Yeah, I mean, they're all fine with that.
You need to come up here and speak.
I mean, we understand, like at an event, you wouldn't want the donut vendor setting up in front of, say, like a bakery. You want to put them somewhere else where it's not, you know, like,
Yes, and that's, we want to be able to serve, we're open to about anything with it. The bars that currently are in that area, no matter what, no one can take alcohol off of that into the event
venue.
itself. So those bars, if someone wants to sit down and eat, they're still gonna do it. Most people aren't gonna, if they're here, they want to be able to walk around with a beer. They're not necessarily gonna go have a beer, and that's gonna be it. So yeah.
I would be opposed if they walked around with it, if it wasn't contained into a garden or contained into one location. I'm fine with that.
If, for us, where I was gonna ask for more than what maybe we'll get, but even if we did it on North Elm or East Elm, the one where Barrel and Bottles at, where we've done the other events, like if it was just that street, that'd be fine, because I think that's the one playing the longer bands. Or that would be the, let me phrase that, it would be wherever the most bands are that are adult focused is the street we would wanna be on.
And then if we were sectioned out to that area, that's where the signage would, and that it couldn't go beyond that point.
I have a quick, how is this relevant to an artisan festival having alcohol? I mean, are y'all gonna display how you make, how you brew? Or, I mean, cause it's an artisan
can-
festival.
So everything I've read about it, it's in the past or has potential to also have a farmer's market or things like that. The state actually allows us to go to every farmer's market
Hmm.
and sell beer at those farmer's market with this same event. People enjoy doing lots of things while having a beverage, whether it be a beer, whether it be a wine, whether it be a cocktail.
But what he's
There's a
saying,
reason most artists are attracted to breweries and wineries because it's a place for them to sell their products. So Little Oblivion literally switches out artists. Red Oak literally has a art museum. So the thing it has to do is it's already in the culture.
I think what he's saying is that like, it would, like demonstrations of like actually like how you brew or something like that, I think would be more in line with what,
Going along with the selling.
like we're gonna have
Into the
demonstrations,
festival.
would tie more into the festival of
It's not
like,
a vendor, it's not necessarily a vendor market, it's an artisan festival. So you could could you not showcase your art of how you brew the beer and do that kind of thing? To make it tie into the
Drinking
festival?
it is the art. The manufacturing of it is not an art form. It's manufacturing. The finished product is the art form. Ben Farrar. And that's 180 Granite Mill. 180 Granite Mill Drive.
I mean, I personally don't have any problem with, if it were contained to where the area where the bands are, that would be fine with me. If it weren't contained, that would also be fine with me. I don't really have a problem either way, but
We're gonna restrict them to the.
I mean, I'd be
Area.
okay to do that. That'd be all right with me also. Like I said, either way, I'm fine with it. So, as long as, of course, if it gets out of hand, then never do that again.
Oh, yeah, we
So-
don't
Yeah.
like it to get out of hand. That's why we actually close early.
We would depend on y'all to,
So if you were restricted
Careful.
to the East Elm Street block, and we created that, established that as quote, a beer garden, then you would issue a wristband and let the person know you can't leave the area with open
Most-
beverages.
Most likely not, because if there's another alcohol vendor, we still need to ID them. We're not gonna go off of that wristband. We would let them know, put a sign up, and then we have A-frame signs that say no alcohol past this point, and we would place those up. But in the same breath, we wouldn't go try to patrol the rest of the event and say, hey, you
No.
can't have alcohol, because there's
If-
other businesses that someone could walk out. and
I'm not saying you would patrol the rest of the event, but if you got, it's just like when you go ASP's, wherever they have concerts, you got a wristband on. As long as you got that wristband on, you have access. If you're in the beer garden and you've got that wristband on and you walk out back into the rest of the downtown and you've got an open container, then you've just violated, not you guys, but the person has now violated, leaving the beer garden.
I'm okay doing wristbands. The only thing for me as a business, that if another brewery puts a wristband on there, I'm still required to ID them. The
Right.
reasons you can get away with it at a concert is because they own the whole venue and it's all their own. So that's how they can do that. But if you would want that, but really, I mean, they would kind of be walking with their cup to wear a wristband. Someone's already gonna see them drinking.
Tell you what, can we take a 5-minute recess and we'll convene back here in a minute? You okay with you, Mayor?
I have
What you
no
mean?
problem.
Let's take a 5-minute recess.
I don't feel well.
Take care of yourself. I'm confused, so. Second.
That means Farrar, B-E-N. Ben, his name is Ben. Farrar, R-R-A-R. It's Reuben.
Love those streets. So, and, you know, some of those probably would be not because, yeah. Yeah, I live here in Graham, I do my own thing. I would like.
That's what I
said. Like 10%. I don't care if I sell it. I just want it. Tell me how long it's still Friday? Get on. All right, thanks, Friday. They set up and people were able to walk into the event space. So it's not, precedent. Iron Gate Winery was one of the vendor restaurants. They had to do wine tasting at the fairs.
Well, like,
Yes. Forgotten, right, yeah, according to his hat, it's.
I'm checking it now. Do you have anything that's like sugar in it? Did I get one of those?
So, yeah, it's called. I have. So I think she's probably talking about it. The request was coming to you guys, so something we can handle.
Post signs, you can't walk.
Huh?
Don't have a social.
Why don't we let the rec determine whether
Madam
they
Mayor?
be together or separate?
Madam Mayor, if there's discussion by the council, I think it should be in an open session where everyone can hear the discussion, please.
Sure.
Madam Mayor, make a motion that we come back into session.
Second.
Sorry, if you could say what you just said.
Oh, we were just discussing that, since we're not a social district per se, if you could keep it to a certain area perhaps, like he had said, like a beer garden area, and then just, I know you're gonna do bracelets because you gotta ID them, right? So, I mean, the bracelets aren't so much of a concern as keeping it in a contained area and just put up signs that say no alcohol beyond this point. Then if they walk out with it, they're subject to law enforcement.
Because we are not a.
Because we
social
are not a
district.
social district and you can't just walk around town with an open container.
That is
So,
correct.
Would you be okay with that? I mean, is that something that
Yes, we would have.
is
something that-
doable?
I think
Yes.
so.
Yeah, I think, when you say that, you're saying a smaller area than that street? Because that street has a natural
Well, that's, not-
exit.
if we said the East Elm block would be the quote,
Yeah,
beer garden, they can drink beer right there
Yes.
in
Yeah.
that block.
and then just put up signs there that say you can't go beyond that point with
Yes,
alcohol.
and we have 4 or 5, no alcohol, Paul, that past this point, A-frame signs that we could bring
Okay.
over,
Right.
Cool.
kind of set in the street. I'm sure no one would want rope or anything going through that, because then it just
No.
kind of weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Bottom line is, we do not have an open container policy in Graham.
Right, we don't want to get in trouble with that, so
And so.
somebody call the law on us.
I
so-
think, before the council comes to any sort of definitive conclusion, Assistant City Manager Holland has just a few things he'd like to add.
One thing, Lieutenant Payne had wanted me to make sure anytime that we had an event where alcohol was going to be part of it, I had to read this little blurb. I would have put it in the staff report, and then that way when you approved it, you would just approve the blurb. But I can just read it out if the parameters are going to be East Elm. If council want me to go ahead and do that.
I mean, I would suggest that we let staff review this and legal review it and even the PD review it and then come back next month and just make
Yeah,
a
I mean, we
decision.
do- we have
I'm
time.
not in favor of making a decision tonight without knowing all the specifics.
Yeah, we have a precedent that we don't do that, but, it has to be on the agenda, it has to be advertised. The only thing that I would say is that it's a little different, like when they're putting on an event, they apply for the event. And I believe we would have to apply with ALE,
No,
wouldn't we?
no. Our permit allows it. So each winery, brewery, and distillery all have a event license, special event license. That is the license for the event.
Okay.
So for us, we literally are carrying the ABC permit. So our COI would then include the city for that event, and that's how it's done. There's no extra required state requirements whatsoever, other than if it was not a street festival. There's about 10 things in the law that state street festival, food truck rodeo, farmer's market, and I don't remember all of them. One was really weird, like tennis tournament or something, that we're not required to go to the state, that the special event license carries that already.
And our insurance will cover us, right, Aaron?
Well, I think what they were saying was that we would be added on to the COI
Yeah,
that
so
they have.
anytime we do an event with the city, we're required to provide a COI with the city named
Okay.
on it.
All right, well, my personal feeling is that I don't, I see the benefits of it all being together, but then like, is that gonna make everybody wanna just be in that one street and then the rest of the vendors aren't gonna,
Only the beer drinkers, I
yeah,
guess. Right.
gonna, go over. So maybe it's better to separate them in certain areas, put them one on each corner. I don't know, but if you're gonna have 4, but I feel like I'm not, the one that necessarily, I'm agreeable to whatever gets worked out with both what the staff, the rec department thinks would be best in coordination with the police department and how to like kind of police it and make sure that all the kind of Ts are crossed and Is are dotted. And, so if you'll just, allow us to be able to kind of work it out. I think the council, I mean, from just listening to what they're saying, that they, I think they're not necessarily against it. I think they just want to make sure the logistics of it get all worked out, and then come back in April. We'll make a decision at that point, and then the event is May 17th.
Correct.
Okay? Does that satisfy you? Okay, all right.
It's better than enough.
Okay, well, we kind of have a standing policy that we don't vote on things the same night it's brought up because no public notice has gone out. And, I think this gives them an opportunity to kind of make sure everything is taken care of, but at least you kind of know the council's feelings about it, that we don't, and we'd love to see it. I think me and Joey would love to see a demonstration of, I don't know, how you put the labels on the bottles or something.
It's a long, brewing processes are a long process.
I mean, you have a lot of breweries and they do tours, right?
Yes, we're way too small for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you went there right now, you can't get in the tap room because I brewed all day today, so we move everything over there.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe future school trip,
Oh, yeah.
field trip.
It is interesting though.
Yeah, I know. I wish WITS
Fascinating.
did that. I want to know how to make custard. When you go to West Jefferson, you learn how to make cheese, these big rolls of cheese. I don't think a single student doesn't know how to make cheese once they live in
Well-
West Jefferson.
We'll defer to the staff.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, I
Yep.
make a motion that we defer this to staff and bring it back to us at the April meeting.
Okay, I think we have a consensus for all of us to do that.
Yep.
All right. Next, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
I do have a comment though, Mayor,
Sure.
on this Tom Boney with the Alamance News. Mayor, I would ask that you do check carefully with the attorney, and I think the city manager alluded to some things, and also the assistant city manager. I'm not sure that some of what has been described would be legal under North Carolina's ABC laws. Even this area, even this idea of a confined area with no drinking beyond this point, wrist bands or something for drinkers. I think you really need to check with.
That's why.
Yes, I think I also do commend the council for postponing to get more information. But I'm not sure that even those descriptions are allowable under state law.
Well, if they can't be on a public spot, then maybe they could be on private property as well. So,
Well,
let them work out
let
the
them work it out.
logistics
We'll
let 'em
of
work it out.
that. And then, we'll come back with more knowledge next month and be
Okay.
able to make an informed decision.
All commendable. But I
Thank-
think we do need to check, staff and others need to check
Agree.
with the ABC board on some of those.
Thank you so much, Tom. Trying to keep us out of the newspaper. Billy Stallings. You'll please come forward, state your name and your address for the clerk.
My name is Billy Stallings, 213 East Hanover Road, Graham. I read somewhere about you guys pay, what, $25 a week, 5,200 a year, something like that? No,
Not us.
not you?
We're not county employees.
Okay. May I ask what you make?
I make nothing because all my money goes to insurance.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, man, that's-
okay, what I was gonna suggest
In
is,
fact, I owe the city money.
okay,
Send a check in, don't I?
the only thing I was gonna suggest is, I don't care what you make, but what I read in the paper was not very good. But I would like, y'all are a good team. Hey, I don't see eye to eye with most of you most of the time, or some of you some of the time. But y'all deserve more money. I wouldn't sit up there for what you guys are making. And I know Miss Tally
Yeah.
works a lot, and, I think the last mayor, he retired from the city, so he didn't have to worry about insurance. Whoever the mayor is should have insurance. I mean, no?
Well, I'll speak separately.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm just making what I feel is right.
Yeah,
I mean,
we receive a stipend. But
y'all don't always get commended for a good job.
Thank you.
A
I
lot.
Well, thank you.
appreciate that.
We
lot of-
appreciate you doing that.
Well, a lot of times people, I was gonna say, I'm glad Mr. Boney's sitting down. But, anyway, no pun intended, but anyway, I think you guys are doing a good job and I wouldn't do it for whatever you're making. You know, what I read,
You'd have many takers if you advertise this job.
well, I think the.
Not for the money, no, you
Uh-uh.
wouldn't.
No,
No.
and that's what I'm saying. I think that needs to be reviewed and, you know, I don't know the law on mayors having insurance, but I think that would be the proper thing to do.
We appreciate it. Thank you for saying that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
The last mayor
We do it
retired.
because we love the city. That's why.
Well,
So,
thank you. The last mayor retired from the city, so he didn't need insurance, okay? So, and everything that came up, they were gonna take us away from the employees, he took it away. So, he was,
You like your insurance now?
yes, ma'am,
Good.
Nice, isn't it?
yes, ma'am.
Excellent.
I just retired from the city, September.
Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations.
I don't wanna go back. No, you guys deserve more money. Sorry, Mr. Boney, if I've offended you. But yeah, I think I got a good idea of what you guys make and Megan, I hope you can, maybe working into the budget. So they can have something to reward them for doing a good job. That's all I got.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I would just like to voice a very strenuous dissent on that concept. The board, the council is supposed to be a public service to the citizens of Graham. You're elected by the citizens and it's supposed to be a public service. The council, in my opinion, no council, not Graham, not Burlington, not Mebane, not any other one, nor the county commissioners should be getting personal benefits such as insurance, health insurance, any other kind of insurance, nor should they be entitled to retirement. This is a very part-time position. And while it may, some of you spend more time than others, granted, it is still a part-time position that is an elected position and to which, in my opinion, none of y'all or any other board are entitled to benefits.
I would argue that it is not part-time.
Say again?
I would argue that it is not part-time. It
But
is
you
a
will be happy
full-time
to
job.
know, we don't get any of that stuff.
promise you it
And we're
is.
not looking to get any of it.
Yeah, no
So-
one's proposing that.
Well, somebody was proposing it. and I just-
Nobody up here is
I
proposing that,
understand
He
that.
was, I think he was mainly saying,
but we appreciate what he said.
But also,
'cause
Matt,
Yeah.
don't
Madam
get
Mayor, and
compliments.
certainly
Oh.
I would certainly concede that you spend a tremendous amount of time on the city's business. But even with as much time as you or any other individual member spend, it is not a full-time job by any stretch.
I will be glad to start writing down my time sheet.
Be glad to send you my.
Maybe you should
You'll be
send,
surprised.
send him 5 things that you did last week. I have to do that every week.
I'll be glad to. The Doge of Graham, right there.
Thank you, Elon. You may
Elon.
take your seat.
Okay,
Moving right along.
Brian, do you have anything?
Can I reply?
Sure. Okay,
My opinion is not what his opinion is. I think you deserve insurance. Hey, it ain't no state law against it. So I don't care what Graham or I don't care what Mebane, Burlington, Green Level. I don't care what they do. I hope y'all don't care what they do. But I mean, I want a damn good mayor and we got one and we need to keep her. All right? That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, do you have anything?
Hey, ma'am.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a noise ordinance, correct?
Yes, sir.
This past Saturday, we had, Tommy Purcell and his wife were here in Graham, had lunch. And as they were walking down North Main Street, some individual had his windows cranked down and he was blaring his stereo as loud as it could go.
Believe
And
I've heard that.
Tommy Purcell almost lost it. His wife had to get him into the verdict to dampen the sound. But we just need to remind folks, be respectful. If you got your windows up, you can play it as you want to blow yours out, fine. But you don't need to serenade the rest of the community. And so,
And for those that don't know, Mr. Purcell suffers from a traumatic brain injury. He's a veteran, and whenever he hears loud noises, it's a very traumatic. It's hard to watch. And I'm sure the person that is playing the music really loud doesn't have that intention to hurt someone, but you are physically hurting him. And, you know, it's a respect thing, to be respectful of other people. And, you know, people just don't realize sometimes the consequences of their actions. And so, I don't know. Wish there was a better way to enforce the noise ordinance with the car revving and all that kind of stuff that happens pretty regularly. We get complaints about that all the time, all the time. I don't think there's a month that goes by that we don't get a complaint about that.
anyway,
Yeah.
I have two things. One about the development that was built on Lacey Holt, the Leo Terra development, I think is what it's called, right there on Lacey Holt. It backs up to Carrollton. And I remember when they were here talking about the next phase that they were going to build, they made some verbal comments or agreements about the type of barrier they were going to put between that neighborhood because it backs up to Carrollton. And they have not, from what I see, they have not, you know, held up their end of the bargain of what they told the homeowners there that they were going to do. They put up these little skimpy, tiny trees and they're spaced way far apart. They were telling the homeowners that, you know, they were going to put up a big barrier, big thick barrier so that they could not see into these people's backyards. And I don't care how long this thing grows. These trees are like, because of how they're spaced out, that's never going to be a big thick barrier. I don't care, 10 years from now, that's not going to be a big thick barrier. And I was just wondering if we could look into that and see if maybe we need to talk to the developer and see, you know, if they're going to hold up that end of bargain of what they told the homeowners.
Yeah, I'll definitely get with Cameron and we'll take a look at it. The only thing is, if it was something that they told the homeowners separate of the site plan that was submitted,
Mhm.
or anything that they agreed to while here presenting to council, which we'll pull the minutes and see what was said then.
Yeah, but they also told the lady that with the farm, they were going to put up a big barrier there, and that one's pretty skimpy too.
Yeah, we'll take
You
we'll take
know.
a look at it. Yeah, we'll take a look at it.
So, yeah, would you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing was, I have a suggestion for a new handicap parking space in downtown, because we need more handicap parking, and we got that area right between Hi-Fi and that other building there that we could put a nice big handicap parking spot right there. Can we have that looked into with DOT if council would agree to it? It's right there between Hi-Fi and what's the name of that little what's the name of that little store on the other side of that?
Well, that's an alleyway.
Yeah, but it's blocked anyway.
It's gonna be unblocked.
I don't know about that.
Let's watch and see.
Okay, so we don't want to entertain putting parking spot there?
An emergency egress, and I can assure you, if something's on fire, it's going down. I mean, that's the only way, you have to, when you build a building, have the access to be able to get to the back of your building and the front of your building.
I was just
That's co- that's
suggesting it.
state code.
I'm only suggesting it because it's blocked already, so.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't, I definitely would not suggest having a car there that somebody couldn't get out in the event of an emergency.
Okay, well, he still can't
And
get
I
out,
think
but,
that's still, well,
that's my
it's just
point.
plastic. I mean, somebody could drive
oh,
through.
it would tear your car up if you drove over that. Yeah, it would, trust me, it would. And some of the cars, even if it were lowered, they still can't clear it, you know? Because it doesn't go down far enough, so. I'm just looking for ways to use the spot, you know, but. You know.
Okay.
I mean, if it's illegal to block one because of egress, why is that bollard still there? Then that needs to be removed.
I have to stay out of this conversation.
I'm just saying, why doesn't the city say it's an egress and you gotta take it down?
The fault is bottom.
I'm sorry, what did the pro tem say?
I say we didn't fault this battle.
Well,
Well, the point is, if it's an egress, if it's a safety issue, it needs to come down. That's all I'm saying.
I missed the meeting, but didn't the council decide, 4 of the 5 council members who had been in a closed meeting decide that in fact, no one owned that alleyway?
I think that was a misstatement. It wasn't that no one owned it, it was that the city didn't own it, and I misunderstood what we were told. Because I thought it meant that nobody owned it, but what it meant was the city didn't own it. Am I correct, Brian? So in lieu of that, if the city doesn't own it, then, you know, someone else may own it. I don't know. I wouldn't know if they do or they don't, but somebody put a bollard up and blocked it, so.
But I thought also the impression, the city's conclusion was that no one owned the alley.
No,
No?
no.
That was
The
not-
city of Graham does not own it, so we have no say in what happens there. That was the point.
But if it's a safety issue, like you just said, then we should have a say.
It's been an alleyway for more than 50 years. There's a prescriptive easement.
Okay.
No, Madam Mayor, in fact, I want to mention that while we're on the topic. I do not understand how the city went into closed session to discuss this issue in the first place, 2 or 3 times. It does not involve any lawsuit involving the city. And so the mayor rightly recused herself and stayed out of the meeting, each one of them, apparently because of the charge then pending against her husband connected with that. But there's nothing that I can understand that would have warranted a closed session on this topic. It's a general policy issue, which is explicitly exempted from any discussion, even with a lawyer, in a closed session. So I hadn't intended to talk on many of these topics tonight, but since the attorney mentioned it, I certainly want to make clear it wasn't appropriate, but we didn't know about it after the fact, until after the fact, when it became divulged.
Why are you directing this comment towards her?
Only because you're the moderator.
Of it.
You're
You
the,
didn't moderate
we
the
wanted to
closed
know if the
session. I
city
didn't
owned
make
it.
a motion for the closed
I will,
session.
I'm sorry, I will direct it
Please
to the
direct
mayor
other-
pro tem.
To somewhere else.
But I would raise that concern with each of the 4 members who participated in the closed session, that I do not think it was appropriate, didn't know it at the time, kept asking questions about what was the purpose of the closed session, which was never explained. But upon exit from the closed session at last month's meeting, which I was out of town for, then there was this discussion that the city did not own it. And as I understood it, although, and apparently others understood it, but maybe that wasn't the final verdict, is that no one owned that property. Certainly, as I understood the report, no one had been paying taxes on that property for the alleyway.
GIS shows, the public records show that no one owns it.
Well, that's what I understood the exit discussion last month to have stated. But my underlying point again is I don't see why it was a proper discussion in closed session in the first place. And I certainly would object to it being a closed session in the future.
You heard that, didn't you?
So what's the criteria for a closed session?
Because there were legitimate legal issues that were brought up, if we warrant or consider attorney-client privilege, I think we had every right to go into closed session. Do it right now.
Yep, I agree.
The statute in that same section quoted by the attorney says general policy matters may not be discussed in a closed session, and nothing herein shall be construed to permit a public body to close a meeting that otherwise would be open merely because an attorney employed or retained by the public body is a participant. And so just because Brian and/or Bob Ward are present does not make it an allowable closed session. And the description about how to treat this alleyway is not any legal matter that was pending. There was no lawsuit by the city. There's no lawsuit against the city. So it didn't involve any litigation involving the city. There's some litigation was pending regarding the husband of the mayor, which frankly makes it all the worse that the council went into closed session to discuss that. The mayor, as I've indicated, very correctly recused herself from any discussion in the meeting. But I would very strongly disagree with the attorney's assertion that the previous discussions or any future ones on this topic about that alley would be appropriately held in closed session.
Thank you. I didn't know you were an attorney, but thank you.
Well, all communication client has to be regarding litigation or legal matters aren't just involved in litigation, they're involved every day. And this was one of those. Did have some legitimate legal questions.
Yep.
Us, Bob and I talked to you guys in closed session. If you privileged information, you have the privilege. If you have a attorney-client privilege, you waive it, not waive it. We're in closed session for legitimate legal communication between our client.
Thank you. Well, I guess I'm done now. You're welcome.
So I had a, comment about, whether we, you made me lose my train of thought.
I apologize.
That's okay. Being able to, oh, I don't remember what it was. Tiny homes. What is our policy on, tiny homes and being able to put, tiny homes up in, as infill?
We, back, the planner that, was here, that is no longer here, brought that up. And we tabled them indefinitely until a new photo ordinance is evaluated.
Are you talking about, accessory dwelling units, or are you talking about tiny homes?
They're one and the same, aren't they?
No.
So if you're looking at tiny homes on a lot as an individual tiny home on an individual lot, it would be looked at no different than a single family home of any size. The building code has certain requirements that deals with space and size. So it would need to meet building code. And if it can be building code, you can build a small home. I don't want to say tiny home. It just, there are certain things that would need to be part of the home to be a home. So without having square footage added to it and all that, you know, we would need to have the information of what the home is. If you're talking about a tiny home to be an accessory dwelling unit to a residence that's existing, that's not an allowed use in our current ordinance. And, as Mayor Pro Tem was saying, that was an item that was brought up prior, but was, tabled until a later date. Obviously, if council wanted to reel that back and we come
No,
back
we-
with it, we can,
don't
we
even
can
want-
do it, but, you know,
I don't think there was much, interest in doing the accessory dwelling units. But what I'm thinking about was reading an article about, how you're able to get trailer parks basically to upgrade. You know, trailers in these older trailer parks, are really close together, right? I mean, they're like put in there like one right after another. Changing them out for, a tiny home would update the park and like, and it wouldn't, like, I guess that's my question is that allowable for people to take out a trailer and put in a tiny home? Because like I understand, like if you have all, like you wouldn't want to do that in say like a developed neighborhood and you have like a vacant lot and you know, you want a harmonious look to that neighborhood. And if most of the homes are, you know, I don't know, 3,000 square foot or 5,000 square foot or whatever, then you might not want just like this little tiny home stuck in the middle of all those homes. But in a trailer park, if you upgraded all of those trailers to tiny homes, I've seen it done at the beach too. And man, I mean, you go and what that trailer park was and the, and then you see what it became. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, really, transformative. So, and you're not like, it's not like you're downsizing the lot or changing really the occupancy of what you already have there. You're just modernizing
so,
the look of it, and it was great. I was a fan.
yeah, so we would have to look at that only because, you know, a lot of our mobile home parks are non-conforming. So if something comes out, what goes in would need to be of a similar size, similar everything. To put in something different, we had to make sure, one, that it's an allowable use in conjunction with what's already there. So we need to probably investigate that a little bit. I know what you're saying. I've seen that for other communities, but I just don't know if the way our ordinances are written currently, how flexible ours are.
Somebody that owns a trailer park, which are huge money makers. I mean, they charge just as much for a trailer as they do a stick-built home. I would like to give these people that own these trailer parks the option to be able to not just stick another trailer in there for the next 25 years, but actually have the opportunity to put something like a tiny home in there and really just upgrade the park. I don't know. I think, I don't see any negatives towards it. And if y'all do, please let me know.
I guess it
But
would depend on whether or not the trailer park is, if they're renting the lot or renting the trailer, because some trailer parks just rent the lot and you put your own piece of your, whatever you live in there.
mhm.
But some trailer parks.
You're
rent-
renting the
You're
trailer.
renting the trailer from the landowner.
Trailer parks, Aaron, the trailer parks that are in the city, does the county still control a lot of, that different, connections and stuff?
I mean, we have connections there with the ones that I'm thinking of, here off of East Elm, was it Flowers,
How about the ones going up,
Parker,
Pomeroy?
Pomeroy Parker, yeah. Then of course you got the ones down on the south side. no, none of them are the same. So the regulations and the setbacks are all different. That's what I'm saying. We would probably need to evaluate what's currently in place for the mobile homes to exist as they are, to see how difficult would it be if you wanted to have an option of someone being able to sub out a mobile home for a tiny home or a smaller home. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Because I want to be careful because I'm not sure if we allow for tiny homes as they're defined. So we need to kind of see where we are with that as well. So if that's something you would like us to look into, I would like to do that.
I mean, I, I like the affordability of it, and it's, you know, for those people that can't afford two homes now that, you know, 20 years ago that used to cost $65,000 to $100,000 are now $250,000. A lot of people, their income has not increased exponentially to that. And I like the affordability of it. It's an upgrade to what a trailer is. And, I don't know, when I saw what it, and I know we're not at the beach, but when I saw the affordability of how people took existing trailer parks that had gotten run down over the years, and like you say, the only option is like for like. You can switch out that trailer for another trailer. If it's a single wide, it's gotta be a single wide. If it's a double wide, it's gotta be, you know, it's all these rules. And maybe there's a better option with a tiny home, and it would increase property values over there, still have the affordability. A lot of people, maybe they don't want to have the maintenance. They prefer living in a closed community, and they're fine with just having something that's really small. But that's a housing option that, according to our comprehensive plan, we don't have. And are y'all okay with that? I'm looking at that.
I'm okay.
Okay. The other thing is, there was a resident that came to me about a issue with, being able to have a home-based business. And it's for somebody to be able to do hair. And, I recommended that they go back and apply for a, conditional use zoning so that there can be restrictions and things. But I guess my question is, if we allow people to do home-based business, how is somebody doing hair in their home, just them, and them doing taxes? Like what, like we allow people to do taxes in their home. We allow people to have, different, you know, office, like I think another person in that same home did dentures there for years and years and years and had a dentistry business. They were serving customers, but they weren't like doing actual, you know, stuff. But, there were people there was adequate parking. I mean, I think that if you're not causing an issue with parking on the street or excessive trash or, putting chemicals down like grease or anything, like a restaurant or anything, putting grease down the sewer line and stuff like that. Like, I guess I'm not getting why doing hair is an issue. I mean, I grew up for years knowing people that did hair in their house, and they're being told they can't cut hair in their house. I'm not getting, I'm not, the math, it's not mathing for me.
I mean, all I can say on the home occupations, the intent is for low intense uses that doesn't take up a lot of, I think it's no more than 25% of
Yeah.
the gross area. I think, you know, if you look at a specific situation where there's a lot of parking and all that, and someone's cutting hair, yeah, in that instance, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. But I think if you go to a smaller area where someone is cutting hair that doesn't have as much parking space, you can flip that and you know, someone, a good barber can have quite a few people lined up to come see him. I mean, you go, actually my barber down the street here, McCray, he's one man band, and you know, he cuts a lot of hair. And I just know not all situations are necessarily the same, but
But isn't that what the conditional use zoning is for? Like, so that we can say your
Well, conditional,
sign
yes.
can't- your sign can't be larger than 2 foot by 2 foot. You can't have parking on the street. You have to have adequate on-site parking. You can't have,
but
more
you
than.
said that's conditional.
Right, I guess what my argument is that why are we telling people just, no, our ordinance doesn't allow for that, rather than directing them to this other option of conditional use zoning?
As far as I know, we've always done it. I mean, we had another request for a beauty salon, and that's what was told to them. They were given the
I was
application.
told directly by the planner that, they've said no, they've told other people no, and that it's not something that they allow in a residential neighborhood.
I know that he told, most recently someone that they can go the conditional route because that was the option that was provided for someone else. Now I haven't spoken to this individual, so I can't, say one thing or
I guess I
another.
just feel like this, the council makes the rules, and if there's something that would prevent somebody from being able to cut hair in their house, it's been done since at least the 40s, I would think, 40s. I mean, people have had home-based businesses, and I guess I just couldn't think of any reason why somebody shouldn't be able to do that. I don't like government telling people what they can and cannot do with their property unless it's hurting someone else. Like, I get it. If you're hurting someone else, that's what zoning needs to step in and protect other people from, your neighbors from, you using a property that hurts, someone else. It's gotta be, obviously, you gotta consider the public's best, the public good. But, I'd like for us to see what that is. I asked for, if you could find me a copy of the wording of that, so that that wouldn't just be something that would be allowed. Is that, or do you think conditional is the best route?
I think it's the cleanest route. It would spell out, it gives council the ability to set specific uses that
Okay.
house could use it for. I mean, it's a house in the neighborhood, so, y'all would then control what that use outside of a house would be. I mean, we have other situations where a house has a conditional zoning attached to it that has certain uses associated with it. That way, if a person doesn't want to use it for a house and they want to use it for something else, then as long as it's on that list, then, it's allowed to use.
Like Airbnb, they generate a lot more trash than a normal, because they're being used for a commercial purpose. And they have a lot more parking issues, and like you say, but they don't have to go get a conditional use zoning. I guess I just don't want to have things,
What to do now?
and, huh?
I say.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that,
I
like,
understand.
you don't want to make people not want to do it the legal way.
Yeah.
I don't want to put so many barriers up that they don't want to just do it the legal way.
Yeah, and I get with Cameron tomorrow, see just where we are with that.
All right, thank you so much. I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.